Let's look at calculating the mean time between failures. Now, suppose you have one resistor being tested for 2 hours and it fails. Then the mean time between failure will be operating time of 2 hours over number of failure. 1 is equal to 2 hours. HRS. So you could say it will fail after 2 hours. Now, suppose you have 2 resistors tested for 2 hours. Now that means this tested for 2 hours and this test is tested for 2 hours. Now the time, since there are 2 resistors, it's not just one. The time would be 4 hours. Alright? And let's say 2 fail. Then in this case, time will be 2 hours over number of failures 2 with 1 hour. So you could say, alright, 4 hours divided by 2 failures. You could say there will be 1 hour per failure, because what happened? You have 2 of them being tested during a 2 hour time and both of them fail. So you could say each of them lasts 1 hour. Alright? Now, let's change it a bit. Suppose you have 4 resistors being tested for 2 hours. You're going to multiply each by 2. 2 4 is 8. So it's 8 hours. And then you have only 2 fail. So the operating time 8 hours divided by 2 failures equal 8 over 2 is 4 hours. So you could say you expect each of them to last for 4 hours, right? Because you tested 4 of them for 2 hours and 4 failed. So in that case, that and 2 fail, I mean 2 out of all of them failed. And when you divide it up, then 4 hours you expect each of them to last. Now, suppose you have another case where you have 10 resistors. You test 10 resistors and you test them for 2 hours. And 2 of them fail. Only 2 of them. Then you should have an improvement. You should have a greater time between failures. They should be more reliable now. So guess what? You're going to say 10 resistors multiplied by 2 hours. The operating time is a total of 20 hours. So 20 hours divided by 2 failures going to be 10 hours. The mean time between failure is 10 hours. So you expect each of them to last for 10 hours. because you had 10 of them being tested for 2 hours and only 2 failed. Alright? Suppose you tested them for 1 hour, 10 of them for 1 hour. Then let's look at the calculation. 10 resistors tested for 1 hour. And let's say 1 of them failed. Only 1 failed. What's the mean time between failures? It's 10 resistors times 1 hour, which is 10 hours. 1 failure. So 10 hours over 1 failure is 10 hours between failure. That means you expect each resistor to last for 10 hours. Because you had 10 resistors, you tested them for 1 hour, only 1 failed. And it's 10 of them. Right? That's the mean time between failure. If it was 1 resistor, 1 hour, 1 fail, then you would have 1 hour between failure. But it's 10 resistors being tested for 1 hour. And only 1 out of the 10 fail. Then you would expect each to last for 10 hours. The mean time between failure is 10 hours. Suppose 2 of them fail now. If you have 2 failures, then you divide the 10 hours by 2. So what you would have is 5 hours between failure. So you would say, alright, 2 of them fail instead of 1. So they would be half as reliable. So you can say each of them will last only for 5 hours. Alright? So the more of them fail, the less reliable they are. So the less time they will last. Now let's make some more changes. Suppose you had tested these resistors for 10 hours and only 2 fail. Then you expect greater reliability now. Each of them should last longer because it's 10 hours. So it's 10 resistors times 10 hours, which is 100 total hours of testing. So it's 100 hours divided by 2 failures. So you have 50 hours between failures. Alright? So it will be 50 hours expected between failures. Alright. Suppose now you go back to testing for 1 hour, and instead of 10 resistors, you had 100 resistors being tested. So if only 2 fail, then that's good performance. 100 resistors times 1 hour equal 100 hours total operating time. 100 over 2. 2 failures is 50 hours. But then, suppose only 1 of them failed. Only 1 failure you had. Then you expect greater reliability, higher quality resistors. So 100 hours over 1 would give you 100 hours between failure. Right? Now suppose you tested them for 2 hours each. Then 100 by 2 would be 200 hours of testing time. And only 1 failed. And you would increase to 200 hours between failures. 2 hours here. If 2 of them fail, then that would be less reliable. 2 failures would be divided by 2. So, being less reliable, not lasting as long, because more of them fail, then you would have 100 hours of testing time. So the fact is, the more you have, and the less that fail, the more reliable, the longer each will last, the longer the time between failure. The longer the operating time, the longer will be the time between failure. But the more of them that fail, then the shorter will be the time between failures. That is, the less the quality, the less reliable it is.